Thank you for watching a video in the MSP Accelerate series. In this video, we'll be talking about adding a second network interface card to an existing virtual machine. As we get to the agenda, first thing we're going to talk about are the prerequisites, and then we'll follow that up with a demonstration of adding the second network interface card, as well as validating those results. In terms of the prerequisites, the first thing you're going to need is access to the Azure portal. You're going to need at least a contributor role in order to be able to make some of these changes. And then just do note that there are additional fees for adding a public IP. In our demonstration, we'll actually go over how a dynamic IP address gets assigned to the network interface card and how that can be converted to a static, but just know in that same section, you can also choose to add a public IP. And let's go ahead and get into the demonstration. All right, I'm already in the Nerdio University resource group. And for the example that we'll be doing today with adding a second network interface card, we'll just go ahead and do that to FS01. A good example to do this on. And so we'll go to that particular virtual machine instance. And for any of these changes regarding the network stuff, this is going to have to be powered down. So this is probably an after hours event for most. If it's a new server that isn't in production yet, you certainly can do it in the middle of the day. So for this, because this is a demonstration environment, we'll go ahead and stop FS01. And while that's stopping, we'll come over and look at the networking section here. So within the networking section, you can see the one NIC that we already have, which is the FS01 NIC that is there by default when Nerdio is first provisioned and FS01 is created. And then you can see that the NSG network security group is already attached to the LAN. So we'll want to make note of that when we go to create the second network interface card. In this particular case, when we are asked to assign an NSG, we actually don't need to because this particular NIC will be part of that same LAN and will inherit all of these particular rules that are being implemented by this network security group. So we'll check we did get a successfully stopped virtual machine. So we'll come in here, refresh the status. We see that that has been stopped. And just recall that anytime you see deallocated here, that essentially means that the meter has stopped within Azure. So not only is the VM stopped, but deallocation would specify that any of the associated consumption resources against it, in terms of costs and those types of things, is stopped. So now we can go back to networking and we'll attach a network interface. In this particular case, I don't have one available and most of you won't. So we'll go ahead and create and attach a network interface. This will take us to a new screen. We do want this in the same resource group. And so if our first network interface was an FS01 NIC, we'll just make this FS01 NIC 2. And for our particular instance, we want this to be on the LAN side. Now you do have a chance, to choose the DMZ, and that would maybe for a particular host where you're straddling, a web interface that you're publicly facing or those kind of things. You can have it with that DMZ exposure. In our particular case here, we're going to keep it on the LAN side. I do not need a network security group. So here's the answer to that question that we had before. And then we'll go ahead and start this off with a dynamic IP assignment on the LAN side. So that's going to be part of that 10.125 network. So once we've got all those filled out, we'll go ahead and hit create here. And we'll see that start by creating a new network interface for that particular host. In this case, it's going to be FS01. Fast forward a bit and we'll go ahead and just do a quick refresh of the networking section of the FS01 here. And so we can now see that FS01 NIC 2 is there and available. And if you go ahead and select it, you can see that the NSG rules have been applied. Had we selected to add a new NSG, there'd be another one down here. So if you ever do see an additional subset of rules down here, it's probably because you added an additional network security group, which is easy to remove, and you probably want to delete that from your resource group as well. Another item worth looking at might be topology. And so this is a feature within Azure that's kind of nice from the perspective of it gives you a full view of all of your hosts. In our case, we're focused on FSO1, and you can see the new NIC2 that we've created, as well as the FSO1 NIC that was originally attached to the VM. And on that particular NIC, we do see also the public IP assignment that was created. And so with that, we can go back and consider some of the dynamic nature of the IP that we assigned when we originally added this NIC. And so from here, we can actually drill in to the NIC itself and look at the IP configuration, or we can go back to the original page we were on and drill into the FSO1 NIC2 from here as well. So both will get you to the same place, so you can get to it from topology or from the blade. In our particular case, when we had first provisioned this, we provisioned it with a dynamic IP assignment. And so because this is an FSO1 and a core server within this environment, I'm actually interested in having it be a static, because let's say I'm going to bind it to a particular application or something along those lines. We'll go ahead and switch it to static. I actually like this IP address, so we're going to go ahead and keep that. And then we'll come up here, hit save. We'll give this a few seconds, and then that'll convert that from a dynamic IP to a static IP with that 10.125.0.6 address. So we'll go back to FSO1. You can see that IP still is here, is now static. We just configured that. And we're now in a place to where we have both FSO1 NIC and FSO1 NIC2, both sharing the same network security group attached to the LAN. And that should be everything for adding this second NIC. So thank you again for joining me on this video, and we hope you enjoy the rest of our MSP Accelerate videos.